watched Suicide Squad on HBO Max last night, and let me first say two things about this particular property. The only thing I know about Suicide Squad was when I was first introduced to them in the late 80s, I want to say. My favorite artist and writer, John Byrne, did a limited series for DC entitled Suicide Squad, and it was great. Prior to that, I had no idea who they were. Fast forward to, I don't know what year it was, maybe 6 years ago. The first Suicide Squad hit theaters. It starred Will Smith, Margot, Robbie, and the guy, I forget his name, the guy who plays Rick Flag, he was in it. I forget his name. I think the guy who played Boomerang in this one, Jay Courtney, he was in it too. And I wasn't a huge fan of that film. I thought it was, I don't know, it was just seemed like another film that I could see all the wheels grinding. Nothing was interesting to me in particular. But that, it was what it was. Now, I'm at a point now where I'm like, these superhero movies are not going to get my money outright. Maybe it's because of the pandemic and I can sit at home and watch movies now. Or maybe it's just like, I don't know, maybe I just don't care that much anymore because there's so few good movies being made. But I sat home and watched this film on HBO Max. And I will say I was drawn in immediately right at the beginning. It had sort of a Deadpool vibe where they did pretty much everything but break the fourth wall like they do in Deadpool. The comedy was good. There was a certain irreverence. And it was almost like a parody of superhero films. Seeing Pete Davidson as a superhero was a headbuster. I was totally drawn in. There's a scene at the beginning where these guys have to hit the beach and storm a beach and take over like a Central American or Hispanic island, right? It was hilarious. I was completely drawn in. Then the next 20 minutes happened, and I was like, okay, this is what I remember. What do I mean by this is what I remember? Well, kind of like telling myself that I'm not going to get sucked into the superhero hype anymore. This movie's not going to get my money right off the bat, just like Venom 2 won't get my money right off the bat. But then I started hearing interesting talk about this film, Suicide Squad 2. I heard that it was gory. I heard that it was similar to The Boys, which is an excellent show on Amazon Prime, another superhero semi-parody based on a comic book that was a semi-parody of superheroes. Once I heard that, I was like, if I get time, I will go see that in the movie theaters. Then I found out, hey, it's on HBO Max. Okay, let's sit down and watch this thing. And after the first 20 minutes, after I got sucked in, I remember that same feeling of disappointment. Feeling like you suckered me yet again. I found myself falling asleep at points in this movie. I found myself bored. I found that the new characters that they introduced were not very interesting, nor were they that compelling. Why should I be interested in characters who one of them controls rats, or one of them hurls deadly polka dots? They do introduce Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba. Now, I will say the only Bloodsport I'm familiar with from comics is the Bloodsport that appeared in a John Byrne Superman issue back in the late 80s. The character was African American, and he was insane. He had gone insane because he dodged the draft, and his brother went in his place and ended up getting killed in Vietnam. So that drove this Bloodsport crazy, and he became a killer. And I believe it was Lex Luthor who gave him the ability to summon any type of weapon that he would desire from another dimension or something like that. So he could make a weapon appear in his hands at a moment's notice, any type of weapon that he would want. That's the Bloodsport I remember. Now, Idris Elba's Bloodsport was pretty cool. It was more of a takeoff on Deadshot, I think that's the character, that Will Smith played in the original Suicide Squad film. So they kind of brought him in to replace Will Smith. But then they bring in another character called the Peacemaker, who has the exact same skill set. They tried to diminish that by writing it in the script saying, hey, this guy does the exact same thing that I do. And I guess the writers feel like, hey, if we acknowledge that, then people will accept it. No, we don't. And the character is played by John Cena, ex-wrestler, the poor man's Rock, I guess, the poor man's Dwayne Johnson, who's not as good or charismatic. But I don't know, I just didn't care about any of these characters. And the plot, it was just all over the place. They tried to throw in everything but the kitchen sink. So who's the bad guy in this movie? Is it a corrupt government? You know, in the face of Amanda Waller? Is it a guy who's experimenting on aliens? A character named the Thinker? Is it the alien itself? Which I'm not going to spoil that. Put it this way, it will put you in mind of Ghostbusters at the end when they fight the Marshmallow Man. Okay? So, or it might put you in the mind space of the end of Watchmen, the comic book version, or the HBO version. It might put you in that mindset. There's a little bit of Walking Dead in this too. It just comes off as silly, and it comes off like they have no focus. The only other character that was of any interest to me was Harley Quinn, played by Margot Robbie. The problem I have with that character, though, is that, man, I don't know much about Harley Quinn other than what I've already seen, but it's just amazing how she is not a metahuman, but man, she's able to jump, she's able to run almost at super speed, she's able to wield a javelin, even though, as far as I know, she's never trained with one. And she's able to take out a whole squadron of trained soldiers. Like after being tortured, by the way, after suffering through torture. She takes them out, no sweat. Now, it makes for a great action scene, but it's Harley Quinn, okay? Now, I know the corporate suits saw that Margot Robbie, as fine as she is and as popular as the character has been on screen, they had to beef up her role. Similar to what they did with Rogue in the X-Men series, where Rogue in the books was always a villain. But hey, Rogue is popular in the movies. Let's make her a hero now. Let's do that. That's the thing they're doing with all villains now. They're making them anti-heroes or straight out heroes now. Okay? I don't like that. Anyway, I had a problem with Harley Quinn's character. I'm like, I know I don't know this character, but damn, is she super powered? Is she like Spider-Man? Is she almost like Submariner? There's a scene where she's underwater, I won't spoil it, for a significant amount of time. At any rate, the director of this film was James Gunn, who did an awesome job on the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, direction-wise, he did a good job on Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I just wasn't a fan of that film. It was more the story that did not hold my interest. And here, I mean, the direction is fine, I guess. I don't like the saturation of the colors. I think he's going for a 60s war movie, A-Team, The Bad Batch or whatever type of film. You know, almost like a grunge Tarantino homage to the war films of the 60s. He has weird techniques that he does to introduce different chapters of the movie, I suppose, but they're very inconsistent and they're jarring. It doesn't work for me. They set the film in a Central American or a Hispanic island to give it more of that kind of like, I don't know, that 60s war vibe, or well, I don't know. I sense what he was going for. It just came off as strange. And what happens to the villagers at the beginning of this film and the city, the entire city at the end of this film, strikes me as just callous in terms of just doing it for a joke. It just seemed a little like off color to me. If the movie had held my interest like it did for the first portion throughout the film, this would easily be a 4-wheel film for me. But because I just didn't find most of the characters interesting. Another character I did like was Amanda Waller. Viola Davis really plays that role well. The kids in the office that were working with her, couldn't stand them either. But because I wasn't that interested in most of the characters, and because I just thought the plot was all over the place, I can't give this more than 2 wheels. And that's the martini.